All right, so really happy to have my guests today, and a couple of topics that we've talked about are security and reconciliation. And with our guests today, we're going to get dived a little bit into each of those. So it's Trey Markel, Centrex Software VP of Sales and Marketing. Trey, always good talking to you. Glad you could join me today.
Yeah, no, Shane, thank you for having. Always a pleasure seeing you at trade shows and in the industry. It's always a pleasure.
Good, appreciate that. And so let's kind of jump right into it. I mean, you're at the forefront of working with funders, brokers, and all different fintechs. And you have a unique perspective and experience. You've been in this industry for a while. So talk to us. Let's go into reconciliation first and what that really is. I mean, it's a big topic for really everyone, but it's specifically funders to reconcile a merchant's advance. We're specifically talking about revenue-based financing, MCAs, so that they are paying what they should be paying. Per their contract and maybe
Right.
beyond. So talk to us a little bit about that and what you're seeing and what really, it is.
Yeah, so since the late 90s when I think MCA and revenue-based advance first kind of came out, it originally started on credit card receivables only, right? And you would have a relationship with the credit card processor for that particular borrower or merchant. And that credit card processor would do like a holdback, whether it was 10%, 15%, 20% of daily or weekly receivables. And then the actual credit card processor would be the one that would hold back those funds and then pay the funder back directly. And that's how the funder got their money back. Now, as the product has kind of evolved over the last 2 decades, people have kind of decided that, there's so many credit card processors out there building relationships with all the different processors, or kind of the pain that's required on getting a borrower to switch to a different processor and what that kind of looks like. And that can hold up a deal and commissions and so on and so forth. And, it's just hard to do. Like if you're going to do only credit card receivables, you're going to build a relationship with the credit card processor and then have them pay you. And now you've got a middleman paying you versus getting the funds directly from the borrower. It's a large process. It's an expensive process. It's a very laggy process. And then on top of that, the accounting for it isn't so tough if you're doing straight credit card receivables. But as
Mhm.
the revenue-based advance product came out, where it's not just credit card receivables, it's now all receivables, checks, cash, wires, credit cards, so on and so forth. The accounting for it becomes just an absolute nightmare. And the technology around it becomes an absolute nightmare. The nice part about the ACH product is software companies like Centrex and some of our competitors, we are the ones that initiate the draft,
Mm.
right? So you tell us what you want to draft the merchant, the borrower, weekly, daily, bi-monthly, bi-weekly, whatever it may be. You tell us, our system produces those transactions and just automatically drafts the client. So that's easy to do. The accounting is easy. Everything flows through the software platform you're using. Where again, if you're doing the true credit card receivable splits, it's all the different credit card processors. Who do you have relationships with? How much are the remits on each one? When are they going to pay you? Is the credit card processor not paying you? Well, what happens if the merchant gets in trouble and they have to hold some of their funds? So as you can see, over the course of time, we've really seen the product kind of merge to a credit card receivable kind of split funding product only, now
Mhm.
over to a kind of a strict daily, weekly set ACH type of product. And,
Right.
the underwriting is supposed to be such where I'm going to look at your last 6 months bank statements and several other data points and say, okay, well, you can afford X daily or X weekly or so on and so forth. Well, with what's going on with the AG in New York and some of the legislation coming down and some of the pressure coming down from the government, the states and the feds, they really want to see funding institutions reconcile once a week or once a month, and say, hey, look, yes, we're drafting you a set amount, but we need to look at that once a week or once a month and say, oh, it's a true variable revenue based product. We need to go back and say, okay, did we draft the right amount this month? Were we overdrafting you because maybe some of your numbers came down? Did we not draft you enough? And that's up to the funder to say if they want to go collect more from that borrower or just, keep going down a certain path.
Mm.
So, it's not easy because for the years past, you didn't have an open banking system. Getting transactional data was tough. Borrowers, unfortunately, sometimes aren't very forthcoming or truthful with some of their statements. So there's fraud out there and so on and so forth.
They
I
changed their
think
bank account or they added bank account, all those
Y-
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Exactly. Exactly. And, look, some of those are still issues today, but where it becomes quite a bit easier today, and I wouldn't say totally easy, but much easier, is we have organizations with open banking now like Plaid and like MX and like Finicity. And we've got organizations that now allow you to pull data from bank accounts, transactional data from bank accounts. You can now reconcile that data and say, oh, okay, look, I drafted you $250 a day for an entire month for 4 weeks straight. But you know what? The last 2 weeks of that month, you didn't generate enough revenue to justify 250. Okay, we owe you a credit, or we're going to
Mm.
adjust your payments moving forward. And the legislation coming down, I think, is it's a little aggressive. It's a little tricky. It's needed, I would say. However, you know, you got to be careful, because if you get in a situation where you're not reconciling or you're not talking to the borrower, we're seeing what's happening. We're seeing what's happening with the AG in New York.
Folks. Right.
Yeah, other Nates, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
But it's a good product, though. Like back in the late 90s and the early 2000s when it first started, it's a variable based product, based on how much revenue you're generating. That's really great. If a business owner doesn't have great income for a month, well, they're still only paying 20% of their receivables, or 10% of their receivables. Right now, no matter how much money you make as a borrower, we're drafting the same amount every day, every week, and it doesn't matter. Right. So what Centrex and what we're launching here in the next few weeks, which we're excited about, is we're going to dip into Plaid. If the borrower is okay with that, we're going to dip into Plaid. We're going to pull all of the deposits from that bank account via Plaid into the system. We're going to cross-reference all the drafts that you've done to that borrower over the last month, and we're going to meld them together, and we're going to see what your numbers look like. Did you
Mm.
overdraft? Did you underdraft? And then Centrex clients will be able to kind of take action and say, oh, okay, well, we're going to give you a credit. We're going to give you a one-time ACH credit for the month, or we're going to adjust your payments moving forward, and allow you to kind of take action to make it kind of that safer variable type of revenue ACH draft type of product. So, look, it's really important. I think that depending on what the contracts say for the funding institutions, if you've got reconciliation in there, do you not have it in there? What does your lawyer have to say about it? But I think with open banking, it's going to be quite a bit easier to offer a nice quality variable split funding type of product. And we'll see how the industry takes it.
All right. And so just a question for you, Trey, in regards to the kind of the last thing you talked about, that you guys are introducing this product to kind of help funders and whoever else for reconciliation. Talk a little bit through that more, how it helps, and then, I mean, just anything in more detail in that regards.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of like I said, with open banking products these days, it makes it quite a bit easier. I think there's still some friction and some speed bumps where both funders, ISOs, and even borrowers and merchants still don't trust some of the open banking processes. But like organizations like Plaid, like MX, they're becoming so well known. They're becoming so widely used amongst all the fintech apps and lending apps out there that I think people are becoming more and more kind of understanding, and they're accepting these fintech products to gather banking information. And I think it helps with fraud and security and stuff like that. So Centrex, for example, we have a massive integration with Plaid. We hit a lot of their different endpoints. We run calculations server side on our end to make sure you can look at financial data, and you can look at it in a safe, secure way. So when it comes to reconciliation, we have a product at Centrex Software we call financial health monitoring. And when you fund a merchant, a borrower, for the very first time, or even if it's the second or third time, you have the ability for that borrower to keep their bank accounts linked with Plaid on an ongoing basis. So throughout the course of the advance, or whatever financial product you're offering, there's fresh financial data coming into the Centrex platform every single day, so that the funder can analyze that and say, oh, look at you. Your numbers are going up, 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 up. Your deposits look great. Maybe I'm going to come after you for a renewal, and I'm going to come after you for a renewal faster than I normally would, because I see you're succeeding well. On the other end, you can be a little more proactive, and you can say, look, I see your deposits going down, 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 down. It's only a matter of time until you default. Why don't we get you into a slow pay or a refi, or let's negotiate so that you just don't come to me one day and say, hey, sorry, I can no longer pay the advance off or pay the bill off. So we call that financial health monitoring, so that the borrower, allows open banking to be with the lender, and the lender can analyze that every day. And, you can build a bit of a relationship, and you can help that borrower and their success on an ongoing basis. Now, using the Plaid interface, using that Plaid integration, when it comes to reconciliation, if your borrower has kept their bank accounts linked on an ongoing basis, or even if they haven't, remember, if you hit plaid, I think it
Mhm.
goes back 3 months of financial data. And when it comes to reconciliation, all you really need is a month if you're staying on top of it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so you hit plaid, we pull in all the deposits for that borrower for that month. We cross-reference how much you drafted them on an ACH basis that month, and we say, oh, if your contract says 20% holdback, well, we drafted you 25%. We owe you 5% back on the month. Or on the reverse side, excuse me, we
Mhm.
drafted you, not enough, right? We have a 20% agreement, and according to your deposits for the month, we only drafted you 15% of those deposits.
And this is an interesting one. So what are you seeing kind of what people might do in that case?
So I think the right thing to do on one scenario, the first scenario where you overdrafted the client, I think an ACH credit is very appropriate. And there's not a single borrower on this planet that's going to say, no, don't give me money.
Right. Don't give me the money back.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
don't give me my
Yeah.
money back, right?
Yeah.
And it's healthy. It's healthy for the borrower. It's healthy for the brand name for the funder. They'll build a better relationship with that borrower over the course of time and say, hey, this funder did me right. Right.
Great.
They did me a solid. And every month, if they overdraft me because I had a dip in revenue, they offer me an ACH credit. Now, on the reverse side, if we haven't drafted the borrower enough money, I think that's up to the funder on what they feel like they want to do. If they want to do a one-time draft for the difference, hey, look, contractually, that's what the funders owed from the borrower because they had a killer month. Or other funders I'm talking to are saying, look, why don't you take the difference, reinvest it back into your business so that you can continue to pay our advance off, in the future? No big deal.
Right.
Right. No big deal.
Yeah.
Don't pay us. And we want you to be healthy and grow and so on and so forth. So I'm having a lot of
Mhm.
conversations on both of those sides, but on the credit side where you've overdrafted the client, look, give that credit, give that client that ACH credit back, start from zero, right, on the first of the month, and then see how that next month goes. Business is up and down. Right.
Yeah.
We're in an election year, interest rates are high. There's no guarantees on revenue. And I think that's where the reconciliation product is really healthy and well needed.
Let's talk about security. You're
Sure.
handling a lot of data, a lot of sensitive, data that your clients, trust you in here. So
Totally.
talk to us, yeah, about what you're seeing.
When it
Yeah.
comes to security in the industry, however, there's only so much software companies can do. At Centrex Software, we do a bunch of things, and we still get phone calls and saying, "Hey, I think I have a breach. Can you help us look at the system logs and understand what's going on?" And of course, we always say yes, and we do the research.
Hmm.
Number one, every software company out there that I'm aware of offers a permission-based system. Okay. Now, Centrex is kind of cool because we go 2 layers deep on permissions. Most software companies go 1 layer deep, which is, hey, what can you and can you not do? Right. I
Yeah.
can't send an email. I can't download a document. I can't see this. I can't do that. What can and can you not do in a software platform? And that's a very common permission-based system you see in any software platform out there, especially an enterprise software platform. Centrex takes it one more level deep, and we do something called data suppression. So our first level is what can you not do and what can you do and not do. The second thing is what can you see and not see.
Mm.
If you don't want certain employees seeing social security numbers, if you don't want certain employees seeing certain types of documents, we have document types or note types in our software. You can suppress that data from those groups of users or those individual users. So first and foremost, some of the mistakes I see some clients make is we'll do consulting for a client, we'll log into their platform, they've got, let's say, 15 reps, and every single user has super admin permissions to the
Oh, wow.
entire software.
Jesus. Yeah.
And my
Total
team and I
problem
sit,
there.
yeah, my team and I sit there, we're like, guys, this is not what you should be doing. This is why we have these permission-based systems. So anyway, that's step number one.
Okay.
Step number two, we all know about two-factor authentication. It's huge in our world now.
Hmm.
Authenticator apps, getting text message codes. So Centric Software, other platforms also have what we call 2FA, two-factor authentication, where it sends you a code to your cell phone, and you got to type it in to log in. Right.
Hmm. Yep.
We allow you to turn it on and off. Google allows you to turn it on and off. Most places allow you to turn it on and off. I always recommend turning it on. It takes 3 seconds to get a text message and type it into a system so that, people aren't stealing your passwords or your systems or so on and so forth. So that's
Yep.
number two. Number three, a lot of other systems, just like Centrex, have something called IP whitelisting. okay, or IP blacklisting, for example. So if you only want your employees logging in from the office, let's say you run a business where that's all you care about, you don't really care if they work from home or on vacation, all you care about is working from the office, you can make sure that they can only log in from the IP address at the office, which means they physically have to be in the office. So if
Okay.
they try to log in from home or they try to log in from on vacation, it's just simply won't allow you to do so. Right.
Yep.
So that's the
Good.
third thing that I would say is really, really important. This other stuff was a little more techy, a little more detailed, but I'll explain it anyway. One of the
Sure.
things Centric software does, you don't typically see a lot of other places, but we do it because we hold so much sensitive information. We work with a cybersecurity company where in real time, as our system produces system logs, we inject them into a cybersecurity company, and then they monitor them for anomalies or any sort of threats that could potentially
Mm.
happen or things that just look off.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, and this is pretty funny, we just promoted someone in our IT department to a director. They had Superman access to a part of our system. We promoted someone below them into their position, and now that new person now has Superman access, and the cybersecurity company caught it.
Oh,
And they're
wow.
like, hey, just FYI, guys, this user did not, used to have super admin. They no longer do. Somebody else now logged in with super admin. Is this okay? Yes or no? And with
That was like
cybersecurity,
real time. That was like real time. It just
real
pops
time.
up.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
real time. It sends it to you in real time. It sends it to our administrator, our CTO, and to our owners, and saying, "Hey, here's a threat. How do you want to go handle this threat?" And that wasn't a threat. Obviously, that was normal. But what's great about this is we're getting constant messages saying, "Hey, does that look right? Hey, does this look right?" We literally have an entire department of compliance that I think is four employees these days, and all they do is monitor our systems all day long. For example, we have an open API at Centrex. If someone has built a robot to just
Hmm.
hit the API on an automatic basis, we can tell. It's not hard to tell, right? And we have to call that client and say, hey, we don't allow robots on our system, so on and so forth. But that type of security, that type of understanding what's happening to your systems, we just had a client the other day come to us and say, hey, we have a breach. We think it was done via API. Can we log into the system and look at our API logs? Absolutely, not a problem. We found the
Hmm.
fact that they hit those endpoints, and we now know who the culprit is.
Oh,
Right.
really?
So
Wow.
yeah, so
Yep.
making sure your API log systems, your system log systems, some of the IP whitelisting, all the security parameters that you can possibly use, why would you not use them? Why
Sure.
would you try not to at least make sure that your systems are safe? And then I think lastly,
Yep.
you just got to be careful who you're doing business with. I mean, obviously you got to have some trust. You got to make sure, you're doing business and you got to do business. It is what it is. And sometimes it's not the funder or the lender, or it's the broker. Sometimes it's a rogue employee at those organizations that does something that nobody knows about. But do your due diligence, understand, ask others around. We all know about the forums in the industry, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, and build solid relationships with good organizations. And I think that'll take a lot of your security risk kind of off the shoulders.
Those are great tips. I think as technology evolves and more people enter the industry and so forth, there's always going to be problems, right? And then people try to
Right.
stay ahead of the technology or ahead of the good guys and catching them. So, but I think what you're saying is people got to be proactive and get ahead of these things as much as possible, and then put in the common sense policies and security and hire whoever that needs to, and obviously consult with you guys whether you're working with them or not,
Right. Mhm.
on some of these issues. You mentioned kind of the bot attack. Was that um, were they just trying to submit, or is that an example of people just trying to submit something through the API, or was that just because I hear of these kind of bot attacks for like hitting your website, for example,
Yeah.
and just trying to attack your website for some reason.
Yeah, it's just like we have like an acceptable use policy. It's called an AUP at Centrex, and anyone that comes on board and uses our API, we force them to sign our AUP electronically, and then we hold that on file. And in that contract, in that document, it says you're not allowed to install bots to hit our API or to hit our system. And the reason for that is because it's so much load, depending on what you're doing, especially if you're gathering documents or doing certain things that we know for a fact a human being can't actually do those things. And that's when we say, hey, look, not only is this a security risk, you have no idea if that bot could be hacked. And now
Mm.
they're trying to get information, and you've got an open API key on your system. And open API keys, another great topic, right?
Yeah.
An open API gives you the ability to get all the data, all the documents, anything out of your software. We've got something called API permissions. So if you're going to give someone an API key, you can set permissions on what endpoints they're allowed to hit and which ones they're not. It's kind of like giving everyone super admin access in your system. That's a bad idea,
Right.
right?
Right.
Giving
Yeah.
giving just open API access to anyone you want is a bad idea. We want
Yeah.
to make sure we restrict them. So we have a lender submission API. The lender submission API only pushes the relevant docs and data to do a lender submission. You can't touch anything else,
Okay.
right? So anyway, those are some of the things you got to keep in mind and do the best you can.
Well, Trey, I really appreciate it. This is great info. We're always happy to check up with what's the latest and with you and Centric. So thanks for your time today.
Yeah, Shane, always a pleasure, man. We look forward to seeing you soon, and thanks for the time.
For sure. All right, we'll see you.